Hello and welcome. In this video, I wanted to share with you the process of making this watercolor chart and what I learned along the way. So I started by preparing a template with markings which were spaced 2 centimeters apart. That's a bit under 1 inch apart. I wanted to fit 14 rows and 14 columns on my watercolor paper since I have 14 tubes of watercolor, but you actually need 1 extra row and 1 extra column, which are the title row and title column. So I was able to squeeze that extra row and extra column in, and I was using waterproof ink, which means that once the ink is dry, if you place water over it, it won't run. So I wrote down the names of the watercolors and then I painted over those names. I've seen other people make charts like this, and the reason that they paint over the names is because they want to be able to see how opaque or how transparent that color is, how well you can see the ink show through the color. Since I was painting a new square next to a square which was still wet, the colors would sometimes run from one square to the next. I tried to leave a little bit of white space between the squares, but that wasn't very easy to do, and I realized that the best way to go about it would be to paint one square and then skip a square and paint the next square so that I'm never painting wet next to wet. In this experiment, you have one square which represents the mixture of 2 colors. But when you mix watercolor, you can get a gradation of colors. For example, if you mix a yellow and a blue, if you put just a little bit of blue in the yellow, you get one color. If you put just a little bit of yellow in the blue, you get another color. And if you do a more 50-50 mix, you get a different color. There are many colors that can be created. And if you look at colors that create gray, for example, blue and orange here created a gray, it would be really interesting to see the gradation of colors in those special cases. Doing this experiment prompted me to want to do another experiment, which is to take pairs of colors and see the gradation of colors that you can get when you mix them in different proportions. And even though it takes time to fill in a big chart like this, I was happy I did it because I felt that I learned a lot, and I also had a sense of accomplishment for filling in all of these squares. I learned that burnt sienna and indigo make a black, and I learned which colors together make a gray. I learned which colors together look more muddy and chalky and lose that elegant transparent effect that watercolor has, and which colors look more interesting when they're mixed together. These paints are Winsor Newton Cotman watercolors. The way I chose them was I just went to the art store. I had no idea which colors I was going to pick up, and I chose all of the pretty colors that I wanted. Obviously, I would have taken all of the colors from the store, but I tried to limit myself, so I chose only these 14 colors. And in retrospect, it may have been a better idea to choose a more limited palette and to buy artist grade watercolors. So it would be better to have 6 tubes of artist grade watercolor than to have 14 tubes of student grade watercolor. Student grade watercolors aren't as good quality as the artist grade. They don't contain as much pigment, and they don't contain pure pigment. For example, where it says cobalt blue hue, that means that this isn't really a cobalt blue pigment. It's actually an imitation of a cobalt blue. It won't mix with other colors or behave in the same way as an artist grade cobalt blue would behave. If you can only afford the student grade, that's totally fine. I'm having a lot of fun with these watercolors, and I have heard that Winsor Newton Cotman watercolors are of the best student grade watercolors out there. There was something satisfying about filling in all of these squares, even though it took a long time. I was very proud of myself for having done so, and I did learn a lot from it. I highly encourage you to experiment with your watercolors. You don't have to make a chart like this. When I first got my watercolors, I didn't feel like making a chart like this, but after several weeks of using it and reading about watercolors, I was sort of interested to try this and see what colors I could get by mixing. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and you're welcome to share on social media. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so, and I will see you next time.